how the trees are going to be like, etc. And we think that opposition side is smart enough to know that. But what's the problem? Let's move to the problem in this debate. The problem that's happening in the world today. I think that disputes between countries are happening, disputes between countries and problems between countries are always happening, such as Palestine and Israel. I think that disputes over territory, such as the split the islands between China and the Philippines, are going on. And we think that these disputes are reaching a stalemate. We think that these disputes are slowly moving towards violence. We see that in the split the islands, we think that China is slowly moving towards arming itself, and we think this increases violence. These disputes have been going on for so long, and we think that these peaceful negotiations aren't working. We think that these peaceful negotiations, they keep on going on, and we think that they have not worked. It's a stalemate where it's a lose-lose situation. Nothing is happening. And what happens when there is a stalemate? We think that the only option for these countries is that they go for a full-scale war. They go and fight each other. And I think that in a full-scale war, it is also a lose-lose situation where so many casualties happen, where so many people die. And we think that instead of going to a full-scale war, we think that death tributes should be pitted against each other in a survival death match, which reduces the number of casualties, and I'll tell you why. So our objective in this debate is to save the most lives as we can. Now, how are we going to do this? Sit down. We think that these tributes will be consented to. They will consent to doing this. And secondly, and most importantly, they'll be voted in by a majority of people. So this will essentially be democratic. These tributes will be legitimate because they have been chosen by the majority of the country, and it's not like the government is being biased and has its own personal agenda, because these tributes will be voted in by the people themselves, by the majority of the people themselves. That's what we think is legitimate. And thirdly, we think that it's not going to be exactly like Hunger Games, where it was a form of entertainment. We think that it will not be a form of entertainment that will be publicly broadcasted and seen for fun. And this atmosphere, this area where they will be fighting, we think it won't be any random place, but this place will be set up by the UNSC, which we think will be the arbiter. So what will I be talking about today? Firstly, I'll be talking about the nature of these death matches and why exactly death matches. And secondly, my second speaker will be talking about how this will actually resolve disputes.
Your objective is to save more lives, so why resolve it through violence?
Exactly. I told you, in status quo, what happens is, after these peaceful negotiations, after stalemate, we think what happens is countries resort to war, which obviously doesn't save more lives. Obviously, more people are going to be killed. So we think that instead of going for full-scale war, we think that we could scale it down to a number of people. And that will be essentially my point. Because we think that death matches are a symbol of war. And we think it's a war in the truest essence, in the purest essence. And we think it's even better than these full-scale wars that will be happening on their side. Because we know that peaceful negotiations reach a stalemate, and what happens after that is full-scale war. So I'm going to explain to you on 3 levels how these death matches are actually better than full-scale war, how it reduces the number of casualties, how it is an equal playing field, how this is more legitimate. Now, firstly, obviously, when you have this is the concept of utilitarianism, where you can save more people. You think that in this proposal, you're ending up saving those hundreds of soldiers that are going to die, and you have 1 or 2 people to solve this dispute. Now, secondly, we think that war has to be personalized, because in current status quo, we think that war is something that is distant from the people. It is detached. And what happens when this perception goes on is that people don't care about war. People don't feel that war is essentially a bad thing. Because like in the US, when the government decides to go for war in Afghanistan, I think that the people essentially don't really feel anything, even though so many people are dying. And when war has no effect on the people, we think that the people don't exactly have opinions on war. People don't exactly exert a certain amount of pressure on the government to stop these wars, because essentially they don't care about these wars. What happens when you have death matches is you ground the war down to the people. Because now the people, they essentially feel that this person is from a country, and they feel the burden of war. So what will happen when people feel it? What will happen when this happens? We think that they will push the government to make these peace deals, to have peaceful negotiations. And the reason why stalemates are happening, we don't think there are enough pressure from the people. We don't think there are inputs from the people, because the people don't care. What happens is you incentivize people to urge the government to have these peaceful negotiations. Because what's happening in status quo is we're so immune. When we see 2,000 people dying in Afghanistan, we don't essentially feel it. But when we see a child dying right in front of you, it hits you right in your heart. So this is how it disincentivizes full-scale war. We think that people can play a major role in stopping full-scale war from happening. And next, how is it an equal playing field? I think that now in current status quo, countries have this unfair advantage of each other. For example, North Korea, and for example, if they want to bomb South Korea, I think they can do anything. They can say, we're going to put a nuclear bomb on you. And we think that when you have death matches, they are essentially equal. We think that in order for a proper dispute to be solved, the playing field must always be equal. And in this case, that is what we're doing. Now, thirdly, why is the result of this dispute fair and legitimate? Because we think, number one, these people have been chosen by the people, by the majority of the people. And secondly, we think that what happens when you lose is death. And we think this is indisputable. Why are there disputes in this world right now not solved? Because they're disputable. And death is something that's indisputable. When this person dies, I think the countries consent that they have lost. And it's not something that can be debatable and will end up going for centuries. So what have we told you today? Firstly, I showed you how this actually lessens casualties. Secondly, I showed you how this is legitimate. And thirdly, I showed you how this is an indisputable thing, how this can solve disputes. And with that, I beg to